Good afternoon. Door is closed. Everybody back from lunch. Hope you enjoyed that and enjoyed the morning program. We're now going to have a look and a listen at Koen van Hove. And he's going to tell us why your vulnerability disclosure is important to us, or to him at least. Koen works as a software engineer at NLnet Labs, but he's also doing a guest PhD at the University of Twente, and above that he also volunteers at the DIVD. And still he has time to come here and tell us about an important thing as vulnerability disclosure. Well, let's give a hand to Koen, and the floor is for him.
Thank you for that introduction. I would like to see some slides, if possible. If I click next. There we go. Yes, because I want to talk about your vulnerability disclosure is important to us. So what is this talk about? Well, it's basically about this. I'm going to split the talk up in basically two parts. One about a vulnerability that I found, and two, an analysis of the disclosure I did. Because I found a vulnerability, that's generally how it starts. And that vulnerability affects many parts of government and critical infrastructure. I thought it was worth reporting, so I did. And I did that to a lot of organizations, so I analyzed what happens when you actually disclose those vulnerabilities. The first part is a bit more technical. The second part is should be a bit more easier to understand and also more fun. But I will try to make sure to that the first part can be understood by everyone. So about that vulnerability. This vulnerability is about email, and before I explain what email is, I want to go over a quick history of email. Now, judging by the rooms, most of you still know what this thing on the right is. It's a physical letter. But for the people from my generation, this letter, that's a thing of paper that you print, and then you put it in an envelope. On the letter, you write down the content of what you want to convey, and you write down who the letter is for, so like an address, and you write down who the letter is from. And on the envelope, you also write down who the letter is for, and also generally who the letter came from. Just like a letter, when you receive the letter, then you open the envelope, then you throw the envelope away, and you only keep the letter. Well, that's basically the exact same concept of how email works. In this case, the envelope is SMTP, and the letter is your actual email. Just like letters, there was originally no verification of the sender. So if I write a letter and I say that it comes from 10 Downing Street, then that letter will just arrive at your doorstep as long as the address that I sent it to you is correct. Email worked more or less the same way, which was fine for a long time, but then of course we got spam, and more spam, and more spam, and at some point we decided we should perhaps do things about it. So let's find a way to actually verify that the sender that sends the email is actually the one that's authorized to send email on their behalf. So we introduced 3 standards. They are called SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And all 3 of them are on the Forumstandardisatie pas toe leg uit lijst. So first things first, a bit about SPF. I will try to keep it simple. But basically, in the original way email worked is that your email server told the server of the party that you want to send an email to, hey, look, I have an email here on behalf of this email address, and it's meant for this email address. And then the server you sent that to just said, okay, that's fine. No verification whatsoever. SPF adds an extra step to that. You still send that same message, but then the recipient actually looks up, okay, you say that you are sending email on behalf of Alice at bas.org. What does bas.org actually say about who is authorized to send email on behalf of me? And in this case, well, you request that via the DNS of bas.org. It replies, okay, it's the IP addresses 9.10.11.12 and 1.2.3.4. Then you check, okay, what server did I receive the email from? Well, it is 1.2.3.4, so it's actually fine. So I will still accept the email. If it's not, if the server you received the email from is not in that list, then of course you have an indication that something fishy may be going on. So it already gives you more of a certainty that actually the email is from the sender you expect it to be. And then DMARC came. Well, because SPF is great, but it does, you can't really see what's happening with your DMARC, with your SPF policy. So you want reporting. So you want to know what your recipients are doing with your email, and if you actually made a mistake and therefore your email is not arriving. Plus, you want to specify to your recipient actually what they should do if that SPF doesn't match. And DMARC allows you to set, well, basically, even if it doesn't match, just accept it anyway, so none. Put it in the spam folder, please, so that's quarantine. Or just reject it outright, which means that you don't even see it in the spam folder, but the sender of the email just gets a bounce back that says, well, hey, look, you tried to send this email and it was rejected. And the way to pass this DMARC check is to pass the SPF check and make sure that the SPF is aligned, or to pass the DKIM check to make sure that DKIM is aligned. Now, we already talked about what the SPF pass means. The SPF aligns means very simply that the letter you write, so the sender you write on the envelope is the same as the sender you write on your letter. Because just like a physical letter, I could write down in the letter that is from 10 Downing Street, and on the outside envelope I could write down that it is actually from 11 Example Lane, and then those two are mismatched. And to make sure that those two match, that's what the SPF aligned check does. I didn't talk about DKIM because for DMARC you don't really need DKIM at all, because it will still pass if you only have this SPF pass and SPF aligned. Even if the DKIM, you do have DKIM and it's completely wrong, it will still pass the DMARC check. So a bit more about how SPF works in practice. Well, in practice, organizations no longer really do their own mail servers. They tend to outsource email to third parties. And third parties outsource it to third parties, which then gets this chain that you see on the right, where foo.net says, oh, I include everything that spf.foo.net says, and that says, oh, yeah, also include everything that foo.com says, and also everything that protection.webhosting.corp says. This basically creates a chain dependency where every host and every IP address that you find in this chain is allowed to send email on behalf of you. So where this goes wrong is that, well, you have very many large generic web hosting providers, and they share outgoing mail servers between their customers, because they might have like 100,000 customers and only 100 mail servers. So that means that a lot of customers share the same mail server. So a lot of them check whether you are a customer, but then after they've checked that you are a customer, they don't check which customer you are. So basically, that means that if I become a customer of them, I can effectively send email on behalf of all their other customers. So that's what I did. So this is a real-life example that is now actually being solved. The ACM, that is the Dutch Authority for Consumers and Markets, they outsourced email partially also to a e-commerce platform. That e-commerce platform outsourced it to a web hoster. And that web hosting platform just didn't really check who was sending email. So I became a customer of that web hoster. Within 15 minutes I was able to send email on behalf of the ACM. That from the outside world was indistinguishable from email that was actually sent by the ACM. So for example, I was able to send on behalf of billing at acm.nl or on behalf of the CEO. In some cases also email to within the organization. And the thing is, it was not just this one web hoster where this went wrong. It was actually possible with web hosting providers throughout Europe. One of them would even be so nice to DKIM sign everything for us. But the amount of web hosters where this happened became so large that I decided to develop a heuristic, because at some point my credit card limit ran out. So how do you know that it's possible with a web hoster? There are generally some very good signs, and the first one is that it's actually able to send email. And it sounds very obvious, but for example, Google Cloud Platform doesn't allow you to send email. It just says, well, use a third-party service. If you are able to send email, then there are two things. Well, either you have to not check what the sending domain is, which is the easiest. But as some web hosters decided, well, we should check for that you're actually sending using the domain that you say belongs to this web hosting. But then they don't check that the domain that I add to my web hosting, whether that's actually one I own. So in that case, as you can see here on the picture, this is a screenshot from direct admin. I can just add any random domain, and that allows me then to send email on behalf of that domain, because it then thinks that I own that domain. So if you meet those two criteria, then there is generally one step which is annoying, but it's in the frequently asked questions or knowledge base, they will generally tell you that it isn't possible. And if you don't find that, then it generally is. And it's the reason for that is that it's very easy to do this wrong accidentally. On the bottom here, you see a screenshot from a popular contact form plugin for WordPress. If you set it up like this, which is very tempting to do, so you see here the from field, I set that to your email, so the email that you in a contact form enter as the email address that you want to be reached on. Now this already sets the from field as your email address, which is basically spoofing, only unintentionally. So if web hosters would block this, then the email that I just set up with my wrong contact form, that wouldn't arrive anymore. And if I am the local bakery and I'm expected my contact form to work, but now it doesn't, then I'm going to go to my web hoster. And that means that they have to do customer service for me, which is a costly thing. So a lot of web hosters are hesitant to change that behavior. Which comes to this part is how to solve it. Well, the only really the person that can fix this is the third party that doesn't really check which customer you are. So you need to push them to fix it, but that's often difficult. The other alternative is switch providers, which is also not really a nice thing to do, because you know that you had probably a long process on picking this provider, and then you suddenly have to change for something else. That takes work, and which makes it difficult to solve for some organizations. So this is about the vulnerability, and now I want to go to what the disclosure process looked like, because even though this vulnerability may seem difficult to fix, there's actually going to be also, during this process we found a vulnerability that was easier to fix, which was in a very similar vein. And you can see that the responses very much varied. But let's first start with the disclosure at the web hosters, because they are the ones that can fix this. And you say them, look, you're doing this, and this has impact on real organizations that are also sometimes large and important organizations. Well, one of the web hosters decided to actually implement fixes. So they started monitoring, then notifying customers that did this wrong, saying, look, if you keep doing this, we're going to block this in 2 months, and then did it. That was the good story. So the slightly, well, the not so nice story is the one where we wanted to notify them that this was possible, and they asked us to kindly sign an NDA. And that NDA would say, well, you're allowed to, after 2 months after we fixed it, you're allowed to disclose what you did. And you can probably see the caveat, if they never fix it, then we're never allowed to disclose it. So we didn't sign it. All the others basically said, well, look, it's nice what you found, but this is basically intended behavior. We know this is possible. We're just going to keep doing it because we've always done it like this. And this includes suppliers from that have signed the leveranciersmanifest at Forum Standaardisatie, or the Netherlands Standardization Forum. And also parties that are in the Veilig E-mail Coalitie. And in both of them, they say that they will help to work on secure email, which is, well, on the one hand, they claim and sign that they work on secure email. On the other hand, when they receive an email about, well, there's a security issue, they say, well, we're not going to fix it. So we did the thing that we thought was best, namely, we're just going to notify the organizations that are impacted by this, because those are not the web hosters, those are the customers of the web hosters. So to give you an idea of who this actually impacts, well, I've highlighted here for 2 countries, and it's the Netherlands and Belgium. For the Netherlands, it's 114 out of 342 municipalities, so roughly 30%. It was half of the provinces and half of the ministries. In Belgium, it's at least 45 out of 581 municipalities. It might be more because I've not as extensively checked Belgium as I did the Netherlands, which will become obvious in the next points. 3 out of 10 provinces and 5 out of 14 ministries, and also multiple banks, hospitals, universities, ZBOs, NGOs, media, etc. Basically every group you can think of, there's at least one case where this goes wrong. And the most important question we of course have then is well, was it actually solved? And I want to highlight some things. So the orangey color, that's Belgium, and the bluish color, that's the Netherlands. So as you can see, the lighter color is basically how many percentage were vulnerable before the disclosure, and the darker color, how many after the disclosure. And if you look at Belgium, then you can see that all the bars are the same length, which that was not exactly the result we were hoping for. And then that does go a bit better, but still some of the bars are quite large. So to answer the question, was it solved? In many cases, no, it wasn't. But to explain a bit, or to exemplify a bit on how those disclosures goes and actually what goes wrong, I want to highlight 3 examples from Belgium. One of them is from a large financial institute in Belgium. So we found that this worked for them, and we tested this, etc. And then we wanted to disclose it. So what we first do is what we always do, is we go to the website and we try to find a form or contact person or something to notify them of the security issue. And we couldn't find one. So what we then did was we contacted the generic or the normal phone number that was listed on the website. And when we called, well, we got a message first in Dutch and then in French. And then we were asked to enter our customer ID. But, well, we weren't a customer, so I didn't have a customer ID. So then I found the phone number for the HQ, and after a bit of waiting, we got someone at the reception, and we explained, well, this is what we were able to do. We want to report this. And they thought, oh, that's important. We want to fix that. Let me forward you. And then got a bit more waiting, and then we ended up at the International Fraud Department. Now, the International Fraud Department thought it was interesting, but not really their thing, and I agreed. So I asked them whether they could forward me to someone that would be able to fix it. Well, they forwarded me again, and then I got forwarded again and again. I ended up at someone that did IT. They didn't really know how to report this internally in their organization, and they kindly asked me to just send an email to their general contact email address, and then they would figure it out from there. Well, as you can probably guess, that it was never fixed. I never heard back either. So the next one is from the Belgian federal government. In this case, we do the same again. We go to the website, we try to find the contact address. Where can we find a way to disclose this vulnerability? Of course, we didn't find anything, but we did find a contact form. So we just filled out the contact form. Hey, we can do this. We would like to report it. Could you please send us the contact details for the person that we can report it to? We got a reply. But the reply said, well, actually, you can call this number. And it was a link to their own intranet, which was behind the login. And I'm not a Belgian federal government employee, so I can't see that page. So I replied, well, look, could you just send me the phone number? Because I can't log in there. And then I got a reply back, well, you can also visit our head office in Brussels. That was a couple hours drive. I decided not to do that. I asked them for something else, for a different way to notify them, and then I heard nothing back. And the last one I want to talk about is yet another large financial institution in Belgium. Again, went to the website, tried to find the contact address, didn't find one, also no phone number. So we did the thing where we tried to find a way to directly contact them, and we decided that Twitter would be a great way to do that, because they allowed us to send direct messages over Twitter. So we basically explained the thing over Twitter and asked us to please send us a way to contact them directly. We got an automatic reply back to please look at also their community forum and to post questions there. Well, because it's about security, we figured maybe not. So I asked them again, could you please give me a phone number, a contact email address or something to just so I can report the issue to you. I heard nothing for a while, and then I got a message that said, would you be so kind to rate this conversation? Well, I never rated the conversation, and I never heard back from them since. So that's basically for Belgium, but let's now focus at the Netherlands, because to be honest, we are doing a lot better than our southerly neighbors. There was an initial report sent to the NCSC. It was reported to the provinces manually and also reported to the municipalities. On the right, you can see the map of the Netherlands. Every colored municipality is a municipality that we contacted, which, as you can see, there are quite a lot of them, and also just very diverse throughout the entire country, large, small, etc. And what happens in practice if you do it in the Netherlands? Well, you get replies and problems are solved, which was very nice, a breath of air compared to, well, the things we experience in Belgium. However, it's not all smooth sailing. We have also tried to contact some organizations within the Netherlands, and then when we contacted them, they were not aware that they were the contact person. So in one case, we tried to reach them via their responsible disclosure policy, so a web page that says, okay, if you find a vulnerability issue, then you can send it here, and please adhere to these things, and then we will make sure to do this. And one of the things they wanted to make sure they mentioned in there is that they would reply within 5 days. I sent an email initially. I didn't get a response from within 5 days, but the web page also listed a phone number. So I called the phone number. Then I got a person on the other end, and then I had to explain to her, well, I'm here to do about the vulnerability disclosure that I did, and I didn't hear anything back, so I want to just know whether it was received correctly. And then I had to explain to her what vulnerability disclosure was, that she was the contact person listed on that page, and that she, within her organization, should probably know who to escalate this to. And I helped her a bit, and in the end it worked out fine. But that's of course not, I shouldn't be the one to tell you within your organization who you should contact for that. What also happens is that those responsible disclosure pages, they list a form where you can do the disclosure, so not an email address, but just use this web form, and then you click on the web form and it says, well, sorry, the form you were looking for is no longer here. Alternatively, sometimes you get email addresses that you can send the disclosures to, and then you send an email to that, and then you get a reply back that, look, I mean, you're trying to send email to this email address, and you're not allowed to do that. Another one, which is very prominent, especially at the government, is that they try to put everything behind a DigiD login, including forms for notifying of vulnerability or software vulnerabilities. And also in some cases data leaks. That's often a combined form. So if you want to then notify them of a data leak, you first have to provide them all your data, so you are sure that your data is also part of the data leak. Which is, so from a personal standpoint, I want everyone to be able to report a vulnerability, even if you don't live in the Netherlands or are Dutch and you have a DigiD. So even if it's someone from Germany that finds something wrong with the Dutch government, they shouldn't be forced to log in using a login system that they don't have access to. Likewise, if you are Dutch and you want to report something anonymously for some reason, you should be able to. And DigiD absolutely does not do that. What also happens in practice is this. This is a very large table, and I will go through it. This is, you can, at your own municipality, request something that is an overview of the organizations that access your data from your personal records database, or in Dutch, BRP. So here you see an excerpt of the table that I requested. And you can see that in this case, there are 4 entries that, of municipalities that requested data from my BRP. And if you look at the dates, I mean, you don't know this, but I looked that up, and then I was like, hold on, the dates are disclosed, these vulnerabilities, are the same dates that they requested my data. And look, they requested quite a lot of data. It's just my citizen's number, my name, my date of birth, my gender, but also whether I'm allowed to stay in the Netherlands. Okay. Am I under financial guardianship? Where do you live? Okay, fine. But also, who are your parents? And who is your partner? When were you married? Also, who are your children? Where do they go to school? Okay, not the go to school part, but I mean, the list is already quite long enough that I thought, well, why do you need this information? Because I'm just reporting a vulnerability on your website, and now you're requesting basically everything about me. It feels strange. And I don't really see a reason why you would need that information. So 11 out of 140 municipalities actually did that. They requested my data from the BRP, the extent of the data that varied from municipality to municipality. In a couple of cases, you actually could see in the table that they also request data from my parents. And I was like, are they using that data to then also make a request for the data from my parents? And I have a good relationship with my parents, so I asked my parents to also get their overview. And they did, and they gave it to me. And I was like, hey, 9 out of those 11 also requested data from my parents. So there are now a couple of municipalities that, because I reported a vulnerability, they now know when my parents were married. Last month, they were married for 25 years, and they didn't get a card, so I'm very sad about it. But that's really strange that they have that information now, right? And as I promised, it goes a bit further, because during the initial disclosure, I actually got in contact with one of the municipalities, and they were very interested in my disclosure, and they were like, okay, but this is one third-party supplier, but we also use these other third parties. Let's just test whether they do it correctly. And I was like, great. And then they replied to me, well, there's this thing called Topdesk, which I think a lot of you have heard about, but if you haven't heard about Topdesk, Topdesk is a service management software. It's often used as a software as a service. It's basically ticketing, but also inventory management, and plus a whole lot more. It's used by a lot of organizations within government, education, but also outside of it. Their software as a service solution can send email through its own infrastructure. And on the bottom, you can actually see an example of this. Well, this is what, if you send an email from a ticket, looks like. You just get this field. It says the sender, which is just a free-form text field where you can enter whatever. It has a to, where you can enter whatever, a subject where you can enter whatever, and then a body where you can enter your own HTML, and that can be everything you want it to be. Now, of course, the question is, does Topdesk really check who you are? I think we by this time know the answer. The answer is no. By default, it allows any address. What the Topdesk can do, however, is they can put you on a block list. And they have to specify this in their knowledge base, in article 11992, where they say, well, if you want to, we can lock your domain name to your tenant. So only you are able to use your domain name with that tenant. This is their design decision. We have questioned them whether this is a good design decision, and they said yes. The thing is, of course, it's not really secured by design. And it's also very obscure. So if you don't know about this, you forget to do it. And we found that in practice as well, because we can scan for whether organizations have actually done this. And from at least the municipalities, 75% of them had not requested this. So 75% of them were just able to send email on behalf of each other. And if I became a Topdesk customer, I would be able to do so as well. So this was a new round of disclosures, and this time we actually could, this was something they could fix, because they could just request the thing on the block list at Topdesk. So we kept track of the 88 municipalities that this concerns, whether they solved it and whether they responded. And that looks like this. So I will guide you through the graph. The purple bit at the top is basically the municipalities that didn't respond and didn't solve it. As you can see, it starts out relatively high and then it gets smaller over time. The bottom part is the ones that actually solved the issue and also responded to me. And with responded, I mean that they sent me an email saying, look, thank you for your report. We've looked into it and we are going to fix it, or we have fixed it. I don't count automatic ticketing. We've received your message systems emails as responded. And as you can see, there is also quite a large bar of organizations that then, or municipalities that say that solve the issue, but then don't respond to me when they've solved the issue, and also a large group that says they have fixed it or will fix it and then don't. Then those two are roughly the same size. And as you can also see, there is also a group that fixes it and then unfixes it and then becomes vulnerable again. And we wanted to see what happens there. So we looked at what did they do to fix this. So this is the type of mitigation that they use. So the yellow part at the bottom is just the vulnerable ones. You can do two things. You can ask to be put on the block list, or you can just use your own SMTP servers and just don't allow Topdesk to send email on behalf of you anymore. And we found out that basically the municipalities that did the latter, they tried that, and in some cases that we assume didn't work, then someone added it back again, and the original issue was closed. So, you know, the vulnerability is now back, but the issue is gone. So it's not fixed anymore. So, but as you can see, there was still quite a large group of people that didn't respond and also still vulnerable, and we want to see, okay, can we learn a bit more about what they do and what they say they themselves think they should do? So we looked at that by sending out freedom of information requests, or in Dutch, WO requests. We sent them to all the 114 municipalities that we tried to contact for their vulnerability. We asked them their policy, the communication about the policy, and the evaluation on the coordinated vulnerability disclosure. And we tried to format the requests in such a way that it would take as little effort for the municipality to adhere to our request. So we didn't want everything like a blanket statement, we just wanted the specific things. Okay, what is your coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy? What was it in the past for the last year only, not indefinitely in the past, etc. We wanted to make sure that it was easy for them to just reply to this. Now, the thing is, of course, you might ask, why policy? Well, the thing with policy is that the government has set to itself that we should do this properly, and we should also be able, people should be able to report vulnerabilities, and we should handle this. And that's part of the baseline informatiebeveiliging overheid, or the BIO for short, that is in effect since January 2019. The IBD, so the Informatiebeveiligingsdienst, that's the cert that belongs to the Vereniging Nederlandse Gemeenten, the VNG. They made a template for this, for complying with this request. But in short, municipalities are actually required to have a page on their website to allow us to just, where they describe how someone like me can report a vulnerability on their website. That's policy, and then we get back to practice, and that's of the 114 that we requested that from. Over half of them replied, yeah, we don't have a CVD policy, we don't have it yet, or we don't have it yet and we are not planning on. From the 88 that I looked at earlier with the one with Topdesk, you can actually see it here in the pie chart. It's actually half-half. This is not manipulated, it's just slides through the middle. And I wanted to see, okay, if you have policy, what actually happened in practice? Did you solve the issue or not? And as you can see, the blue part, so the right part of the pie chart, it's the dark part is not where it's not solved, and the lighter part is where it is solved. And these are all municipalities that didn't have any policy. So you can see that even though they don't have any policy, there are still people within the municipality that understand what coordinated vulnerability disclosure is, and that is important, and that if a report comes in, they will handle it. But still, the majority of them won't. However, if we then look at the policy part, so the other side of the graph, you can see that actually more municipalities try to, or actually resolve the issue, but still the majority, even though they have policy and say, well, we will report within so many days and we will fix it within so many days, in practice, over half of them still don't. So there are other points from the Freedom of Information request. Like I said, the DigiD, there are a lot of pages that require DigiD login. We found no communication about them, why this was a choice, why this was chosen. So we believe that this was just an artifact of every system within our municipality. Every form that you fill out as a citizen is behind DigiD, so this form will be as well. Another good thing is that actually several municipalities have stated that they will now implement policy after receiving our Freedom of Information request. Basically, they said, well, you get a letter back, and they say, well, we don't have any documents relating this, but it is now on. We are now looking into this, and I've received that reply from multiple municipalities. So that's actually a very hopeful message. But like I said, most still don't have any policy, and also what's interesting is some claim they don't need one. So on the background here, you can see a picture from one of the responses letters that I received, and you can read the marked part, but it basically says, We don't have a responsible disclosure or coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy. We are not planning on getting one. After all, we never received a notification about a security issue. Which makes sense, because, well, they never handled my notification, and I definitely sent them one, so it probably wasn't received, which might indicate that they might need a coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy. There's another point, namely that there is next to no evaluation of the current policy. So I asked for all the municipalities for their evaluations of their current policy, and in a lot of cases they just publish the document on the website, and then there is no evaluation about it, whether it works, whether it doesn't work, etc., whatsoever. Which is a bit of a shame, because I found during the process of notifying them a lot of cases where, just like I said, the form results in a 404 or something like that. And if you would just very simply test the form yourself, you would probably figure that out. Then there is, of course, the GDPR request, because, well, as you've seen, some municipalities requested my data from the BRP, and I was very interested in why. So what I found in the Freedom of Information request is that there's no policy regarding when someone does a vulnerability disclosure, we should request all their data. Luckily, there's no official policy, so it is part of it is an artifact of what just happened. And what I received back in the letters I sent to those municipalities is basically, the most common reason is that it is to enter things in their Zaak system. So the system that is there to handle all the requests and the things of the citizens. So if you want to get a permit to build an extension to your house, then of course that would be entered in that system. And in that case, it makes sense that your data is requested because it's about you. But in this case, they also requested the data. They entered me in that system and requested all the data from me because I did a report about a vulnerability in their municipality, which is a bit strange. What's also a bit worrying is that sometimes you get a reply back, and what we sent a letter with, oh, on this date you requested this data, this data, this data, this data, and the 20 points that are requested. Please tell us why. And then sometimes you get a reply back, they say, we did some research and we couldn't find it. Which means that the municipality is not even aware that this is happening, and they can't really find back that they did the request. That is luckily being solved now by those municipalities, because they asked us, okay, you clearly claim that we are requesting all this information, we are interested. And then I just sent them the document that I received, and they were like, oh, we have to absolutely look into this, why this is happening. So that's now currently being resolved. But it is, let me put it this way, I'm happy that it is now being resolved rather than after an actual serious incident. So, all in all, there are a couple of very simple recommendations that I do have for anyone that is from a municipality or a government organization or just a CISO of their organization. If you have a CVD policy, great. Also, if you don't have one, get one first. But I assume at this point that you have one. Test it. Just get your neighbor's son to just make a test request. See if they can figure it out. If they can't, then probably something is wrong with your policy. Also, communicate with the one that did the vulnerability disclosure, because I don't get paid for that. I do them because I think it's the right thing to do. And I don't want anything in return. But it is very nice if you then just send an email back that says, thank you very much for your report. We've looked into this, or we are looking into this, or we've fixed this. That message is from one personal level is already very, very important, because otherwise you feel just like you're sending messages into the void. And these people that send these reports, serious reports, they do this because they want to help you. They are not. You shouldn't treat them like they're a nuisance to you, because they are there to do things that you would otherwise have to hire other companies for that actually charge money for that, and we do it for free. So look, we are giving you something. Please just be nice and accept it. And if you then supply a form where I can do my vulnerability report, please make sure to only ask the data the information that you need. So just a way to contact me and about the vulnerability itself, and not about my parents and where I was born and what my mother's maiden name is, because all the extra information that you ask makes me more suspicious. And that makes me also want to just not report it, which means that there is a vulnerability at your organization. I found the vulnerability and I want to report it, but now your form is in the way of me reporting it, which is a shame, because people that want to abuse it, they won't use that form. They will just abuse it. So that is all I had to say. I found a vulnerability that allowed me to send email on behalf of many organizations, including government, critical infrastructure, media, etc. I tried to report it. We in the Netherlands, we do it really a lot better than our neighbors, and I think that's important to highlight. Back 15 years ago, I would have been feared for the fact that if I did a report, that then a lawyer would come down to me, or the police would knock on my door and raid my and take all my computers, because oh no, it's a scary hacker. Luckily, we're no longer at that stage, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. So, and if you have a policy, please follow it yourself. That's it for me. If there are any questions, then I'm open for them.
Hi, very good speak. Thank you very much. Did you ever consider contacting one of the respective national CSIRT with help with the CSV?
That's an excellent question. I hope that everyone could understand the question that it was, did you ever contact the national CSIRT? I did. I contacted both the NCSC with all the findings, also for the municipalities, the IBD. I'm myself at the DVD, so they were in the loop as well. I tried to contact all the let's call it umbrella certs that were relevant. But I also contacted the parties directly, because sometimes you find that even if you contacted the CSIRT, it would just add another step, which means that the communication gets. There is another step where communication can get lost.
All right, thank you.
Hi, we already spoke last year. Maybe it's better to contact the national CSIRT. For example, in Belgium, we do have procedures that we can contact the right organizations. We do know who to contact. And we have approximately a success rate of 75%, because sometimes the municipalities are scared if they get somebody that they don't know, a mail, and then they think it's spam, and it's difficult. So maybe we can reach out after this meeting and exchange our details.
Thank you. That's a good point about contacting the national CSIRT. In this case, in the case of Belgium, I did contact the CCB. Like the other 3 organizations that I showed on the slides, I did not receive a response. So I contacted, in this case, also the organizations myself again. I would be happy to have a talk, but like I said, this is a recurring issue with a lot of organizations, and I'm afraid that in this case the CCB is not an exception.
Koen, you mentioned earlier, we know each other obviously, the ACM, and that you reported to them, but you did not tell us what happened after you reported it.
So, thank you, Fleur. Do you want to do the honors of telling?
We fixed it.
Exactly, and very quickly as well.
I was wondering how many of that organizations use the security.txt, and did you make use of it?
Thank you for that question. So the thing with security.txt is that I did the disclosures between roughly August 2022 and February 2023, which was slightly too early for security.txt to be massively adopted. What I also saw from, for example, the municipalities in the Freedom of Information requests, they did start working on security.txt, which is an improvement, but most of those documents were from around May 2023, once it became a mandatory or a requirement on the list by Forum Standaardisatie.
In one of the graphs, I couldn't clearly make it out because of the colors, but how much better or did organizations who have a CVD policy actually respond better on average, or is there any difference?
So the organizations that did have a CVD policy did on average respond better, yes. It's still not to the level where we would like it, but it's definitely an improvement.
I work for a municipality, and I just want to say thank you for your research, because the cultural aspect is very important to me as well. It really opened my eyes, because the cultural thing that happens with employees, that they actually feel the need to check your parents, that's not a technical issue, that's a cultural aspect. The information is easily accessible, and that so many people check information that they have no legal basis for. That's really, really shocking to me. So thank you for your research, and I think we should not ignore the cultural aspect just as much as the technical part. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone for a last question? Yes, over there.
Yeah, on the first part with the SPF, and by the way, thank you. I was almost finished with my project. Now I have to go back and check all my mail senders if they really send emails just on my behalf. So, do you have a quick way of checking at scale if all the hosting providers that the company is using, if they are only allowing emails from my own tenants, or if they are vulnerable to the same issue that I described in the beginning?
That's a good point. So sadly, I do not have currently have a way to quickly check whether it's only allowed. There are any of them in there. So that's a slightly manual step, which is, I believe, a slightly unsatisfactory answer, but it's currently the state of where we are.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Koen, I think this was it. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really interesting, good research. And on behalf of the municipality of The Hague, could you tell us secretly how they did in...
The municipality of The Hague was not in the list.
Ooh, okay, very well. But on behalf of them, the NCSC and the Ministry of Economic Affairs, thank you. And here is a small present.
Thank you.
And I think in something like 10 minutes we'll have the next presentation over here. So everybody thanks and have a good conference.